Microphone, Julie Ganey.
If you looked back through my family's medical records for a couple of generations, you'd find the Ganeys to be remarkably healthy. No heart disease, diabetes, kidney problems, very little cancer, high blood pressure. Only on closer inspection might you notice an occasional mention of an unspecified hospitalization or nervous disposition, or my two great aunts with schizophrenia. My grandfather's suicide probably isn't mentioned at all, nor probably is the word depression. Mental illness runs like a shiny thread through the tapestry of my family, glinting and flashing only when you look closely and tilt the fabric in a certain way. The first time my father spoke to me about his struggle with sadness, which has subsided and returned many times over the course of his life, I was 11, and I remember wishing he would stop, that he wouldn't say any of it out loud. I didn't want to be his witness. I didn't want to carry it with me. Once it was said, I knew, and I couldn't not be worried for him. My father is a reader and was a philosophy professor for many years. Poring over books seemed to lift his spirits and carry him for a while through the worst times. He has a great mind for words and quotes which he would recite out of nowhere as admonishments to us kids or as reminders to himself. Things like, if you want to be happy, be. Tolstoy. Or, weakness of attitude becomes weakness of character. Albert Einstein. When I was in my late 20s, going through a dry spell, a period when I was having a terrible time finding work as an actress or work I liked of any kind, I experienced my own debilitating depression, though I don't think I knew what was happening at the time. I felt increasingly hopeless and overwhelmed by the simple tasks of my life. I had the sensation of wearing one of those lead X-ray vests around all the time. I've heard depression described as a virus in your brain, and that's what it felt like. I couldn't think straight. I just wanted to sleep. In the midst of all this, a friend of my husband's called and asked me to play the role of Heidi in his production of The Heidi Chronicles at a semi-professional, semi-community theater company here in Chicago. "Will you be my Heidi?" Stephen asked. His enthusiasm made me feel like I needed to lie down. When do rehearsals start? May 7th. Heidi is such a great role, Julie, and you are perfect for it. Let me think about it, I said. That night, my husband, Brad, was very clear. I definitely think you should do it. I don't want to do some play at a marginally professional community theater company, I sniped. I don't think they even get reviewed. I felt superior. And I felt sorry for myself. And afraid. Afraid that if I did the show, I really wouldn't be taken seriously. My deepest fear all along. I didn't want to do the play, but I had nothing else going on except waiting tables at a barbecue shack. I said yes, and a month later I reported to the basement of St. Sebastian Church on Diversey for rehearsals. The cast members greeted me like I was a little famous. "I saw you in that show at Shattered Globe," they said. "Oh, Stephen, so glad you said yes." It was evident right away that they were really nice people and that they were thrilled to be in this show. We did a table read on the tiny stage where we would perform. Now, I've done a lot of theater in storefront theaters in Chicago. I am used to small stages, but this stage was tiny. It was the kind of stage you would find in a church basement, where you would do the Christmas pageant. Over the next few weeks, except for my closest friends, I didn't tell people I was doing the show. It felt like a professional come down. Privately, I cringed at the rudimentary set and the church basements that we used, the church bathrooms in the basement we used as our dressing rooms. I hated the way we had to change the word fucking to freaking to accommodate the church. The way we had to make our own signs for the protest scene. You don't have to drive all the way up here to see it, I told my parents on the phone. My father said, hide nothing, for time which sees all and hears all, exposes all. Sophocles. The Heidi Chronicles is a coming-of-age play set over 2 decades, which explores feminism, art, and the struggle to hold on to the ideals that define us. I read it recently, and I'm not sure it holds up as a great play, but the character of Heidi is compelling. It required my complete focus. I enjoyed it. Over the next few weeks, I enjoyed the work. And then there was this. The character of Heidi has this 10-minute, 4-page monologue in the middle of the second act, in which she admits this alienation she feels. And every single night that I rehearsed the speech, the other cast members would sit out in folding chairs and give me their full attention every night as I stumbled through it again and again, which is a little unusual because normally when actors aren't in a scene, they're backstage chatting or they're running lines, or these days they're, checking Facebook on their cell phones. But I can see those actors now, looking up at me, their faces half lit, smiling with encouragement and confidence, while I worked through those pages over and over. Maybe it was the generosity of that cast, something I hadn't felt and certainly hadn't shown to anybody else for a long time. Maybe it was being seen, witnessed, or maybe it was playing this gutsy woman, standing center stage, saying her lines, which included, I've been sad for a long time, I don't want to be sad anymore. Or maybe the fever in my brain had just run its course. But somehow it lifted. That play, like my dad's books, was a rickety bridge, just sturdy enough to bear my weight across the chasm to the other side. This was the experience I thought of when my 11-year-old daughter asked me, have you ever had a miracle happen to you? If it was a miracle, it was wrought in the same way that most miracles seem to be, through other people who display kindness when they're thrown up against each other. We haven't talked about depression much, my daughter and I, though we probably will. I don't know what has or hasn't been passed on to her through the Ganey genes. I want to believe that she will find her own way over those chasms to safety. And maybe through books, or art, or maybe just other people helping her across.